So this is a pretty funny game that's found its way into the list of chess world records. And as you're watching this game, can you guess why? So the two players playing, you've got Reinhard Nuber with white, Roland Keckeisen with black. Both German players, and the game was played in Mengen, which is a small town in the south of Germany. Now, we don't know the players' ratings, they're not listed on chessgames.com, so we'll have to do a bit of guess the ELO here. Your guess is as good as mine. Let's see what happened then. So white kicks off with pawn to e4. We get b6 now on the board, the Owen's defense. Now, I used to dabble with this, you can have some good fun with it. So you give white the center, and now here we see e6. The main way to play is with bishop b7 straight away. I then used to go knight f6 as well, super provocative. But e6 is played, starts to look almost respectable. e6, b6, a kind of Nimzo-Indian thing or Queen's Indian thing. But after bishop d3, bishop b7, knight f3, well, now we see g6. So that black bishop's going in a completely different direction. Castles is played, and now bishop g7. So white carries on all the kind of normal development, and now we see black go knight to e7. Knight f6, just too aggressive, doesn't want to run into these pawns, so okay, goes to e7. And this is the theme, the pieces now just sit on these back ranks of the board. So white starts spinning around the knight, d6, queen e2, and knight d7. Now, I'm not knocking this defense for black, because although it looks very passive, it is this kind of hippo setup, and you can strike at the center later. You've got options with c5, d5, e5, f5, you know, really flexible kind of coiled spring setup. So bishop g5 was now played, and actually the computer doesn't love this move. It says that c5 can now be played immediately, and black gets quite an okay game. Themes of the Sicilian going on, of course. But here black goes queen to e8. Now it breaks the pin, which was presumably the idea, but you can see how passive things are now getting. So rook a to d1 played, and now pawn a5. Now this next move from black then doesn't make sense in connection, because you get c3 played, but then the rook comes to c8. You know, it looked like maybe the pawn would advance or something. And even after the rook comes to c8, well, after knight g3, do we get pawn to c5? Well, no, that would be a bit aggressive. So instead, black goes king to h8. Now, it would seem the idea, after queen d2 coming onto the dark squares, is to go knight to g8 and remaneuver the knight around, free up the queen to look in this direction as well. But still, how passive is the black position now? So pawn h3 played, white just slow plays it. Now we get e5. Finally striking at the center. White drops the bishop back, opens up the eyes of the queen here, and now we see pawn h6, kicks back the bishop, and then this rook comes to d8. So some really mysterious rook moves going on in this game. I'm not even going to try and explain that one because I have no idea. Knight h2 now from white, so potentially coming into g4 to look at that pawn, and black now comes up to protect, possibly thinking about that plan, but also white now cleared the way here, and so f4 strikes further at the center. And now, just to show how passively black plays, will we get pawn f6, just sitting on those back three ranks mainly. You've got two pawns here, but not a lot of forward action from black. Queen f2. Now the knight comes back to e7, and again slow play from white, just rook d2, preparing to double rooks, and now rook h8, the mysterious rook moves continue, presumably looking to move the king and you overprotect the pawn, who knows. f5 from white, black goes g5, trying to shut things down, but look at this bishop. I mean, have you ever seen a more miserable bishop on its same colour as all of its own pawns on the board? Bishop d1 now played, good remaneuver, looking at those light squares, and now rook b8 was played, again, don't ask me why. The bishop comes here, the queen moves away, and now the knight hits g4, things are getting pretty critical around the black king. Bishop a6 played, and what's funny about this is look at the eval bar go. So it's the first kind of pseudo-aggressive move that black's played all game, and the computer hates it, for the reason being that you can now jump in with this check. And although it looks like black can win a pawn, if you take it, well then the queen comes in with check, the king has to go here, and you drop an entire piece. And if you don't take that one, just running back here, you know, if you step back with the king, well, still the attack rages on with queen f5, you've got outposts for the knights, everything like that, big attack. Anyway, after bishop a6, instead white just went rook e to d1, very slow play, but still very much in the driving seat. We see pawn b5, again a kind of aggressive looking move, but positionally horrible, because after b4 is played, well now look at this, black goes a4, and again you've got another miserable bishop, but also we should note that finally black has entered the opponent's side of the board, the first piece to actually cross this middle threshold. So if you were thinking that that's maybe the world record here, that the opponent never gets out of their own half, then that is not the one, I'm afraid. a3 now from white, the bishop drops back to b7, now we see rook d3, more kind of slow build up from white, waiting for black to go wrong, and here black cracks and missteps very badly. Now there weren't many good moves to be fair, but this one of knight to c6 is awful because it now leaves mate in 4 on the board. Can you find the combination? I'll give you a few seconds if you want to pause the video. So the way to finish off, you start with the obvious, bishop to g6 check, and because of the horrible placement of this rook, the king has to step back here, and then this is the killer move. The queen now slides across and checks from this diagonal, and we had resignation in this position because the only way to block the check is with the pawn, then the queen can recapture, then you have to block with the queen, and this is a checkmate. So if we run it back here, black resigned in this position, and it begs the question, why does this game go down in the list of chess world records? Well, you've maybe guessed it, maybe not. I'll put you out of your misery if so. So this is the longest decisive game that was captureless, because if you look at the board here, all 32 pieces are still on the board, but it lasted 31 moves and ended in a checkmate. There have been longer games, but they haven't been decisive. This is all according to wiki, chessgames.com. Who knows how accurate? Don't shoot the messenger. This is what I stumbled across. If you have any other bizarre kind of games, and I'd love to hear from you, send them in. I'll try and analyze some of them, everything like that. And if you enjoy this content, do please hit like, subscribe, never miss a future video, and check out this one on screen if you want to see another exceptional game of chess. Thanks for watching, see you soon.